If you're watching this video, we assume you've been referred to our chronic pain self-management team. Many people feel unsure at this point of who we are and whether our approach is for them. This video helps you to understand who we are and how we support people so that you can decide if this sounds like something you want more of. You might find the information and resources within here are enough to start you on a new path or to enhance how you already manage your pain. And if that's the case, great. But we also know that many people feel they need some support. Either way, we hope to be able to help you towards a better place living with persistent pain. The most important part of the self-management team is you, because ultimately it is your body, your pain, and your life. However, as specialist physiotherapists and psychologists who work exclusively with people with persistent pain, we hope to have some knowledge and skills to share with you to help you to understand and manage your persistent pain and the issues it brings as best you can. Most people have been on a real journey before they come to us, with lots of investigations, opinions and treatments they've tried, often with mixed success, and perhaps some unhelpful experiences along the way too. The unfortunate truth is that despite all best efforts, some people will continue to experience persistent pain, and that the longer it's been present, the more likely it is to hang around, and that treatments for persistent pain are not very effective. That means that many people find themselves living with persistent pain, and even if you are still involved with medical professionals of some sort, you are the one coping with it day in and day out. So it's likely that in the long term, how you self-manage will have more of an impact than anything professionals can do for you. That's why self-management is such an important part of pain management. Pain is really complicated, even under usual conditions. It's generated and maintained mainly by the nervous system. Click on the next slide to watch a video explaining this in more detail.
Once upon a time, all the lands were fraught with persistent pain. So widespread was this affliction that 1 in 4 people experienced it. The pain lasted for more than 3 months. It shadowed their daily lives, held them back from everyday activities, and the interventions they tried proved useless. Hey, pain, go away, we've tried it all, but still you stay. Moving less, taking pills, knives and needles, and still we're sore. We can't take no more, no more. But the pain remains like a loyal companion. The people's hopes faded, and they became resigned to living with the pain. Only now the pain was a beast. Then along came a group of researchers, of which I am one. Back off, big fella. I'm Professor Lorimer Mosley, and I'm a pain scientist. Pain scientists are starting to think differently about pain and its causes, and we're making exciting discoveries, like how the way you think about your pain can change the way it feels. Over the next few minutes, I'll help you to understand your pain. Understanding is important because it can change how much things hurt and how much your body can do, and it can help you to tame the beast. First, trust me about this. Pain is not an accurate measure of tissue health. Pain is a protector. By making unpleasant feelings, your brain changes your behaviour so you can avoid injury or your tissues can heal. Sometimes pain is not helpful, like phantom limb pain. You don't expect a missing limb to ache, but it does, and the pain is very real. So how do we explain this? Well, pain is a warning signal from your brain that depends on credible evidence to say your body needs protecting. Sometimes pain's too protective and you get unnecessary warning signals. Pain scientists now understand that there are many ways our nervous system ends up producing unnecessary warning signals. Take conditioning, for example. You think of Pavlov's dog. Every time food was offered, Pavlov rang a bell. Of course, the dog would salivate seeing the food. This went on for a while. Eventually, the dog was conditioned to salivate for the bell alone. Well, conditioning is just one of the ways your body learns pain. And the longer your nervous system produces pain, the better it gets at producing it. Your body learns pain. So what feeds this beast? Well, let's look at how pain works. In your body's tissues, there are specific neurons, which normally only respond to harmful stimuli, whether mechanical, chemical, or thermal. When they are activated, they send a warning signal to your spinal cord, which can in turn send a signal to your brain. This activity in neurons is called nociception, and it's happening all the time, but only sometimes results in pain. Most of the time, the brain protects you with other things, like movement. Once the warning signal reaches the brain makes sense of it based on the information arriving and a vast amount of information already stored. If there's good reason to think protection is required, then your brain makes pain. One of our amazing discoveries is that you can have pain without any physical stimuli. Thoughts and places might activate the warning signals, and the pain feels exactly the same. But it's not just your brain. Your spinal cord also learns how to generate unnecessary warning signals. So how do you know when your nervous system is learning pain? You may notice your pain spreads or comes on without warning. Your body feels odd and it's hard to move properly. Your pain changes quickly with your mood, and small annoyances can set it off. Old injuries start to hurt again. You're more sensitive to stimuli, and the longer the pain goes on, the more all of this occurs. The old way we understood pain could not explain these things and left many sufferers feeling like no one believed it was real, or for it to hurt so badly there must be a major tissue problem. But we now know how persistent pain happens. So how can you tame the beast? Pain is a very personal thing. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. And while you probably have well thought out coping strategies, it's time to take a new approach to dealing with and reducing your pain, one that focuses on retraining your pain system. This might mean testing yourself physically and moving more than you normally would. Being honest about your current attitudes and beliefs can also help, as can asking your health professional new questions.
How do I know if my pain system is being overprotective?
How do I retrain my pain system to be less protective?
How do I know if I'm safe to move?
So be brave and have hope, because it is possible to tame the beast. Visit our website for more information and questions to ask your health professional. tamethebeast.org.
So the key messages from this are that pain and tissue injury are not well matched, and we'll touch more on this later. This is particularly true in chronic pain because the nervous system becomes sensitized, meaning that pain is produced more readily than usual and in response to usually non-painful stimulation such as touch, pressure or stretch, for example. Our threat systems become highly activated. This is our basic biology through evolution, just like the rest of the animal kingdom. It triggers an adrenaline-based fight, flight or freeze response, and we'll touch more on this shortly. While many people do feel a loss of control when in pain, it's important to recognise that there are things you can do to influence your experience of pain and how it impacts you and your life. Sensitization helps to explain a lot of what happens with persistent pain, why it's difficult to treat, and why it often doesn't go away. You could think of sensitization as an amplifier in the nervous system. At all the junctions where pain-related nerve activity happens, biological changes happen. This can mean that nerves connect with other nerves that don't usually give pain, such as those that process temperature, touch, pressure, or movement. The nerves can connect to others nearby, activating them, which can explain why pain can feel as though it spreads into a wider area. Sensitization means that thresholds for activation reduce, meaning that it takes much less of a given stimulation to activate the pain network. On the one hand, this is helpful to understand, as it can help to give confidence that even though something remains painful, that in a persistent situation it is not a sign that there is ongoing harm or damage in the body, more so that the nervous system has become sensitive and overactive. This means that it is a safe pain, but also can result in lots of pain, which, whilst not harmful, is very unpleasant and often distressing. So why does the nervous system do this if it's so unhelpful for us? To understand this, it helps to think about something you've learned in your life, perhaps driving, a sport or hobby, times tables, etc. Essentially, as you activate a network involved in that given activity repeatedly, The network adapts in much the same ways, making that network stronger and faster and embedding patterns into the nervous system that can last a lifetime. In the same way that you can often not unlearn these things, this is also the reason why it's often not possible to cure persistent pain. That said, the nervous system is a living, changing system, and how it is used changes how it behaves. For example, if you continue to practice your times tables, you would keep those networks strong. But if you didn't do any mental arithmetic for some time, those pathways might quieten down and be harder to access when you next tried. What this means for pain is that the more resource that is dedicated to pain, the stronger pain-related networks become, and the opposite is true. Along the journey, most people have had some, often many investigations hoping to find the cause of their pain. As we've talked about so far, much of persistent pain is explained by changes in the nervous system. So hunting for a pinpoint cause in the tissues is often fruitless, disappointing, and can actually be unhelpful. One of the problems it brings is that changes inevitably get reported. And we know that this often makes things worse for people, as it causes additional worry and stress, and is often the root of some inaccurate and unhelpful beliefs, which go on to shape how people think, feel, and behave around their pain. You can see here how common these changes are, even in people without any symptoms. And here is an amazing example of the possibility that these internal changes do not necessarily dictate what is experienced in terms of symptoms or function. We mentioned earlier that pain causes an adrenaline-based fight, flight, or freeze reaction in the body. This is on some level unavoidable, as it is our basic biology. It really can make an already very unpleasant experience even worse though, as it causes a host of other physical and emotional experiences, and really turns up the volume on the amplifier in the pain system. Understanding this, though, can be useful to help us to try and find ways to identify and address as best we can the sources of stress in our lives that might make a difference. We all experience stress, though, for various reasons, and cannot avoid it, nor might it be helpful to try to eliminate stress entirely. So getting familiar with and learning strategies to manage your bodily stress response can be immensely helpful when living with persistent pain. We know that people try to cope in all sorts of ways, but we also see some common approaches that can be unhelpful. The first common difficulty is the avoidance trap. Pain naturally triggers a danger and protect response, even though we know it isn't actually dangerous in persistent pain. Some people tell us they feel quite confident that their pain isn't dangerous or worrying, but they just don't want to experience the really unpleasant pain. Either way, the upshot is usually avoiding lots of activities. And while this feels very instinctive, unfortunately it often leads to increasing physical difficulties as the body becomes stiffer, weaker, and less able to do things over time. People tend to lose a lot of confidence in themselves, and their life often shrinks significantly as they're not doing the things that they used to, which can have huge knock-on effects. At the other end of the spectrum, some people try and push on, determined not to let it beat them, and push hard to keep going with things as they always did despite things having changed. While with this approach, people tend to stay more active and connected to things such as work and valued activities, often it is at the cost of regular flare-ups of pain and poor self-care. Many people can recognise themselves at different times in both ends of the spectrum, perhaps somewhere in between, or batting between the two. However you've been coping to date, we understand that persistent pain gets its sticky fingers into so many areas of life: valued activities, work, family, relationships, finances, etc., etc. Not to mention the additional problems caused by a lack of sleep and medications. It's not uncommon for people to begin to feel depressed, worried, or hopeless about the future, as so much has often changed, and the future can feel uncertain and scary. It's important to know that if this is how you're feeling, that you're not alone. Many people we work with feel this way. It's usually a very normal, understandable reaction to a very difficult situation. If you choose to meet with us for an assessment, you can expect us to ask you about all these different aspects of your experience so that we can get a full picture of you, your pain, how it is for you in the context of your life, and how you are currently coping. It's very personal and individual, and we really want to understand as best we can your journey and your difficulties. We are very open and honest that our agenda is not to focus on pain reduction. Most people have already tried lots of ways to achieve this before they come to us, and we don't pretend to have any magic new treatments. What we can offer is support to shift the focus and help you to move towards a better quality of life and more helpful coping despite pain continuing to be a feature in your life. These are the sorts of areas you might expect to spend some time thinking about and planning changes around, whether that's through one of our groups or on an individual basis. We've deliberately represented them as cogs, as making positive changes in one area often impacts positively on others. We run 2 group options, and while we understand many people have some reservations about participating in a group-based course, we also know that spending time exploring common difficulties and new ways of coping with other people who also experience persistent pain can be hugely beneficial for many. People often say that this helps them to feel much less alone and more normal again. Our pain management programme is a 10-day course, usually 2 days per week over 5 weeks. It is run by our clinical psychologists and specialist physiotherapists and is the most comprehensive package of all things pain management that we offer. Following completion of the course, there is ongoing group-led support for 6 months, and some choose to continue to meet with a recently set up peer support group to stay connected with what is most helpful for them and to others also living with persistent pain. Our Compassion in Pain group is led by one of our clinical psychologists and is best suited to those people with a tendency towards coping by pushing, often might be quite hard on themselves and might benefit from learning ways to be kinder and more compassionate towards themselves and building their self-care. There's a huge amount of excellent information available to support you in understanding your persistent pain and the various things you can do to help yourself and start improving your situation. Please spend some time exploring these resources, as for many, you might find that this is enough to set you in the right direction. We understand that many will want some support from our team, but it would still be really helpful for you to have had a good explore before you come to meet us, as this will put you in a much better position to start. If you decide that our team is not for you, that's fine. We hope that this was useful in and of itself. If you think we can be of help, we'd be delighted to meet with you. When we receive your opt-in questionnaire, we will decide based upon that and your referral information whether you meet with one of our physiotherapists or psychologists first. Some people will be seen by both members of the team depending on their needs and what intervention we're planning to offer. Sometimes we might suggest some input from a different service or another part of our service, or we might agree that you don't need us after all if you're doing all the right things. We hope you found this informative and helpful in making a decision. If you've opted in, it might be helpful to revisit this just before your assessment so it's fresh. And we'd encourage you to share it with relevant family and important people in your lives, as they also might benefit from better understanding persistent pain and what can be helpful.